This is Bill Brady doing another recording for the Kingship course. This one is another recording about the giving and receiving. This particular recording is entitled, Freely You Have Received, Freely Give. Now, I'm taking this from a verse in Matthew, which I'll show you here. Matthew 10, verse 8 in the New King James Version. Heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, cast out demons, freely you have received, freely give. This is Jesus speaking to the 12 as he's sending them out in pairs of two to preach the gospel of the kingdom. So they're going to preach the gospel of the kingdom, heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, cast out demons, raise the dead. I don't think is actually part of their original charge. We won't go into that. But anyway, point being, he says, freely you have received, freely give. Well, what have they freely received? They've freely received the gospel of the kingdom being preached to them. They've freely received healing from sickness. I don't think that they've necessarily been cleansed as lepers, but they've had demons cast out of them most likely. So all these things are things that Jesus did for them with no charge. That's what freely means, is no charge. Freely you have received, freely give. So when the 12 went out in pairs, they went to the villages to preach the gospel of the kingdom, heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, cast out the demons. And they did that at no charge. So they're not functioning the law of buying and selling. Pay me up front and then I'll give you the thing you've paid for. They're functioning in giving. Now, let's talk about what this means and what it doesn't mean. Some think it means, well, that means that everything that people, every bit of revelation that people speak to you should be something they don't have to give back to you for in any way. It's just free. Well, that's not what this means, and I can show you why that's the case. What it means is it was given to you freely, so you're to give it freely to others. Think about it. Those who are hearing the gospel for the first time are not the people that you should be talking about supporting you as a preacher. Your purpose is entirely directed towards them receiving the gospel, receiving healing, receiving cleansing from leprosy, and having demons cast out of them. You're not concerned about them supporting you. These are people that haven't heard this gospel before. Now, this particularly was the gospel of the kingdom that was being preached to them, but I think this applies to any gospel. You proclaim it first, and then you teach it. You sow it, and then you explain it. So sow, proclaim, preach, same thing. Teach, explain, water, same thing. And the initial sowing is something you do without discussion about supporting you while you're doing it, because your intention is entirely focused on helping these people to receive this particular gospel that you're proclaiming to them, whether it's the gospel of the kingdom, the gospel of the ecclesia, the gospel of Christ, which is the gospel of kingship, or some other gospel. Those who haven't heard before, you don't talk to about supporting you. Now, the 12, when they were sent out in pairs, they were supported. It's just they didn't get their support from the people that were proclaiming the gospel to, initially anyway. How were they supported? Well, Jesus sent them out and told them to go to a village and seek out a man of peace. Oh, knock, knock, knock. Are you a man of peace? No, I'm teasing, because they did that spiritually. Maybe they went to the synagogue and talked to the rabbis, or went there on Saturday morning and looked around and figured out who was the ones that were men of peace. But anyway, you approach the man of peace and you say, peace be unto you, on their doorstep. You're speaking peace to them in their house. And if they receive you, then your peace remains upon them. And if they don't receive you, then your peace returns to you, and you wipe off the dust off your feet and go look for somebody else in the village that's a man of peace. If you can't find a man of peace in that village, then you keep on going to another village, and that village doesn't get to hear the gospel. But my point is, these 12 men, when they went out in pairs, they were provided for while they did so. when they went to that house, the man of peace, when he took them in, he fed them food, gave them wine to drink, and provided them with a roof over their head. So they had those three things, food, drink, and shelter, while they were in that village. And if there wasn't a man of peace in that house that wasn't going to be in that village, that wasn't going to be able to provide them with room, shelter, and drink, then they didn't stay in that village and didn't preach the gospel to them. And that village lost out. Now, was that the only support that they were receiving? No. Jesus was also providing for them. Jesus had a group of rich women that were providing for them, and you'll find that in the Gospel of Luke. Just do a Bible search engine like Bible Gateway, put the word woman in there, or women in there, and look through Luke to find the verse that talks about the women that were providing for Jesus from their riches. These were also all rich women. They all had rich husbands anyway, and they had money that they had available to them, and they were using it to support Jesus. They were providing for Jesus. So Jesus was provided for, and he's provided for it in such a way and so well that he could actually provide for the 12 while he was training them, because these 12 men had all left their jobs and their families and homes and their villages, and they weren't making any money. So he provided for them. Now, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. That's Matthew 6:33. And the three things that, if you look back on the context, the three things that are these things, seek first the kingdom of God, and these things are food, drink, and clothing. So at the very least, these men were being provided with food, drink, clothing, and shelter. Jesus was doing the providing of some of this for them from what was being provided to him by the rich women that were providing for him. And when they went out and actually were preaching the gospel of the kingdom in a village, they were under somebody's roof and they had a place to stay and they had food and drink being given to them. So they weren't not being provided for. So here's the thing, the gospel, when you preach the gospel, you don't charge for it, and you're not going to approach the people that you're preaching it to support you, but the people who've already received that gospel do support you while you do that. Now, if you're doing this full-time, then you should be provided for full-time. If you're doing it part-time, then you're provided for part-time. So freely you have received, freely give means you don't charge for preaching a gospel to people who have not heard that gospel or need to hear more of that gospel. It doesn't mean that you're paying for this out of your pocket. It means that somebody is providing for you while you're doing that. So we've seen what it means and what it doesn't mean. I'll do more teaching on this particular topic. This giving topic, unfortunately, is something that many gave when they were part of the church. They supported their pastors, they paid for the building, for the mortgage, and so on. But once they came out of their church and they're learning from people on the internet, a lot of folks have stopped giving. So I'm speaking about giving over a series of recordings because it's important. It does provide for the one who's doing the preaching or teaching, but it also has benefits to you as the one who is the giver, and I'll be speaking about those in future recordings.